Hi there. It's me, Angela, and my assistants.
Elijah.
And,
Dude.
and how old are you, Elijah? And
6.
Nice. So why don't you introduce yourself? If you're here, can you type in the chat and tell us how old you are?
And what's your name?
Your name and how old you are. So we can say hi and welcome you to the time together. So just on the side, there's a chat. Just type right in there. And okay, we watched a video yesterday about the first half of the Old Testament. What did you notice about God in that video?
He's good.
He's good. Can you type it in the chat if you're watching? He's the king of all, right? He's the high king of everything in the universe. And do people obey him very well?
No.
When people disobey him, what happens?
Bad.
It's bad, right? Does it make God happy?
No,
It makes him sad. And there are consequences for sin, but does God show only punishment, or is he merciful and kind?
That's punishment.
Sometimes
merciful.
And he's
Middle.
well. Again and again, he shows mercy throughout the whole time. And he's always faithful to keep his promises, and he's always working to help people be at home with him. And so we talked yesterday about being at home with God. What does it mean to be at home with God? What does it mean to be at home with God? I see.
It means to get to know him more.
Yeah, to get to know him more. If you're at home with him, it means your sin is not separating you from him.
Have quiet time.
Yeah, have quiet time. Can you sit up and say it nice to the camera? You have a quiet time and you talk to God. You thank God for what you have and what he does in your life. You ask him for what you need.
The Big Picture Story Bible. I'm so far.
Yeah, the Big Picture Story Bible is a wonderful way to listen to God's big story, isn't it?
I'm so far.
You are. Yeah, in your quiet time, huh?
Dude.
And wait a second. How can you be close to God? By obeying him or disobeying him?
Obeying.
Obeying. That makes you able to be at home with God. And the only way that's possible is because he was faithful to his promise of all time to send one special person. Who is that? Jesus. He's the Messiah. He's the promised Messiah, the promised anointed one.
I'm hot.
Do you know another name for Messiah?
Christ.
Christ is the Greek word, and Messiah is the Hebrew word to talk about the promised Messiah.
My tongue.
And so the biggest problem we have is our sin. Did you guys do your bags this last week? Oh, my bag is under here and I can't get it out. It's dumping. Actually, I wanted to show it to you.
Mine is full. What? Mine is dirty watching basketball.
So if you were doing the homework, then you should have a trash bag you're taking with you wherever you go. And mine's getting really full already.
Yeah, mine's too.
So what we're trying to... Okay, can you put it down now? So our sin, it builds up over time, doesn't it? Yeah. Until we say, God, please forgive me. So as you guys collect in your bag today, we're going to do it for 4 days. We're going to see how sin builds up for 4 days. And
till Earth Day, right?
And we're going to see how sin builds up over time in our own lives. But sin built up in the lives of the Hebrews. Jude, put your hand down, please. Over lots and lots of years, over all of history until Jesus came. That's a long, long time. And so when you're collecting stuff, you're not supposed to. When you collect stuff in your bag.
I see me.
When you collect stuff in your bag, we're thinking about what kinds of sins. So if you're here today, can you type in the comments some of the sins that we could need to put a piece of dirty laundry in the bag for?
Be afraid.
Well, and if you are afraid, today I want you to think about, as you put one in and say, God, I'm so sorry I was afraid. I want you to think about
afraid.
and ask God to help you do the opposite. What's the opposite of being afraid?
Not be afraid. Be
Praying to God is the
That's
best
right,
thing ever.
That's right, Jude. You pray to God instead. So if you are realizing I'm afraid, it's okay to be afraid. People are afraid all the time. You just take that fear to God and say, God, help me not be afraid. Help me trust you. Okay? So I want you to think about, as you realize your sins today, I want you to think about doing the right thing instead.
comments.
So,
What is
sorry.
Oh my.
So
That must hurt.
as we think about history, Adam and Eve's sin separated them from God, and we see those people wanting to do what was right in their own eyes. They wanted to decide what was right and best for them. Can we decide what's right and best for ourselves, or do we need help?
We need help, but they ate from the tree.
Yeah, Adam and Eve thought that eating from the tree would be the best. Cain thought, and because then they could know what was right and wrong themselves. Maybe they could decide what was right and wrong on their own. And then
So
Cain,
now they can't be king over them.
yeah, they did. They rejected God as king over them. And then Cain wanted to come to God his own way with his own sacrifice instead of coming God's way. And then the people, after God delivered them from slavery, were they super happy? Did they trust God all the time?
No.
No, they didn't. They complained and said, it would have been better if you had just left us as slaves in Egypt. So God knows what's best for us, but people keep having this big problem of sin that builds up over time. And so sin is anything that you think, say, or do that doesn't please God. What can you, let's say if you disobey your parents and you put a piece of cloth in your bag this week as we're trying to see how sin builds up, what can you do instead of disobey, Jude?
Obey.
Obey. Do you obey like really slowly?
No.
No. Do you obey right away?
Yes.
Yes. And do you obey with a bad attitude, with grumbly grumbles?
No.
No grumbly grumbles. How do you obey?
Without
delay, without question, without
With a good attitude, right?
anything.
And you said lying, right? What can you do instead of lying?
tell the whole truth and say mean things and
Say mean things? What?
And
You can tell the whole truth, but if you say mean things in a mean voice, what can you do instead?
nice things, nice voice.
If you do something mean, put a piece of dirty laundry in your bag.
And you say, God, please forgive me, help me do what's right, and then you try to say something nice if you said something mean. You try to trust God,
the
and
opposite.
you distrusted God.
Cards.
And what if you want something really bad, like electronics? Your friend has a really cool electronic device or app. What do you do if you're finding yourself being jealous inside?
Maybe just get it.
Maybe just get it. Well, what if your parents can't get it for you and you can't buy it?
I'd rather always get addicted to God. That's why we have quiet time.
That's a good point, Jude. But if you find yourself jealous, you can put a cloth in your bag this week and you can say, God, I'm so sorry I'm jealous, wanting this electronic thing that I can't have right now. Please forgive me and please help me be thankful for what I have. And then be thankful for the things that you have and content with them. All right, well, today we are going to be looking at another big part of God's story, God's big story. We're going to be talking about the part of history from when Israel got out of Egypt until they're waiting for the Messiah for 400 years of not hearing the voice of God.
400 years.
That's a long time, huh? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
it is.
So we're going to talk about how they wandered with God, making home in the Holy Land, the period of the judges, the kingdom, the split kingdom, how they're sent away from home in exile, then they're back at home, and then 400 years of waiting without the voice of God, waiting for the Messiah. All right, are you guys ready? We're going to have a little map to help us out as we go, and my assistants are going to be helping me with that map. So, the first period we're going to talk about
Elijah.
as we track what God did through time is wandering with God. It's a period of time right after Moses got them out of Egypt by God's hand, delivering them with lots and lots of miracles. And then God is saying, I'm going to take you to the Holy Land now, and here's how I'm going to do it. Don't worry, I'm going to take care of it. And then the spies went into the land, and what did they say? Yeah.
There's giant. And there's giant grapes.
Oh, yummy.
Some liked it, some
Yeah. So did Israel go right into the land and obey God?
No.
No, they were afraid, so they didn't obey. They didn't go right into the land, and the punishment was that whole generation didn't get to go to the Holy Land.
Even Moses.
Moses didn't because he got punished for being angry and doing something out of anger.
That is
But
true.
was God just punishing them, or was he merciful?
Merciful.
Yeah, he still took them to the promised land. And when they were wandering in the desert, their sandals did not wear out. Their clothes didn't wear out for 40 whole years. So can you guys help me find the pictures and put the pictures on? Can you
Which one
find,
are we doing first?
well, what am I talking about right now? We're talking about how they wandered in the desert with God. God stayed with them.
They wandered in the desert.
Yeah, and God stayed with them that whole time, didn't he?
Kingdom.
And he led them with the pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. You'll notice as we go through history and through the Bible,
Oh, this one.
I'll let you do it next time, okay? So you can see we're starting to fill in our little chart here. They wandered with God. And then, not yet, and then there was a period of the judges. Can you think which one is, can you try to find the picture for the judges? There was this horrible cycle that they went through
That's what.
where there were judges that ruled over them. Yeah, can you put it right here? You guys glue them on, okay? So they're going to glue this on and we'll share it with you while I talk to you
Mom,
about the period
I
of the
wonder where
judges.
this goes.
There.
I wonder where it goes.
Oh, wait. You know what? I skipped one. Oh, no. What did they do before wandering with God to having judges rule over them?
Kingdom.
So they went into the Holy Land from a period of 1405 BC to 1337 BC. They made their home in the Holy Land. They made their home in the Holy Land. Do you guys know what the Holy Land is? If you
God's
do,
special
type it
place.
in the comments. Yeah, and that was the land of Israel, and they divided the land in a special way. So they made their home with God.
Never read the picture.
They made their home with God in the Holy Land of Israel. And Joshua led them in. They took the land, but did they obey all the way?
No.
No,
Kingdom
but God,
broken up.
They wanted a king.
but God did God still dwell with them? Did he still make his home with them?
Yeah.
In the tabernacle? He was merciful. And then we have the period of the judges. Sorry, we kind of skipped through the first.
Oh, I put
So
judges on.
in the period of the judges, there was this awful cycle. There was this awful cycle of sin. Okay?
I got it.
So they would sin, and then they would be oppressed. God would send them into slavery. And then they would repent and say, God, we're sorry, please help us. And God would deliver them through a judge. And then they would sin again, and they go in slavery again. And they did it again and again for about 300 years. Now, some of the judges that God rose up ruled at the same time as other judges in different areas.
I can't see
And
myself
so-
in the picture anyway.
Oh, that's because this is in front of you. You're still there. See?
Oh.
Okay. But I think if you look at yourself, it's distracting for you. So I'm keeping this here so you can focus. Just look. I'm looking right there. Okay. So the judges went through that horrible, horrible cycle. And then you can see now we're filling in our chart
Kingdom.
of history. Okay.
Kingdom.
And then what comes next? Yeah, the kingdom comes next from about 1043 BC to 931 BC. We have the kingdom. And who was the first king of Israel?
Saul.
Saul, yeah. Now, at first he was really good, but did he stay good and humble and honoring God?
No.
No, he
Good,
didn't.
bad,
And so,
good.
who was the next king?
David.
David. Yeah, David was the next king. And did David obey all the time? No, he did some pretty bad stuff, didn't
did
he?
some good stuff too.
Yeah, he did some really good stuff.
He killed
He's
the
pretty.
giants.
Yeah, he killed Goliath, and he
Goliath is the worst.
the Bible said something special about David. Do you know what it said? Do you know the Bible God said about David?
Yeah.
He was a man after God's own heart.
What?
Yeah, that's a pretty big,
You know what?
big thing. And you know what God did for him? Even though he took one of his most faithful soldiers' wives, he stole his wife and then he killed him. Even though he did those awful things, God was merciful to him, and he made a big promise to David. Do you guys know the big promise God made to David?
Oh my God! Glue on me. Oh, this one right here.
Do you know the big promises? Sit down, please. That God made to David. God said that David would have a great name, Israel would have a place, and he would have a forever kingdom. The big deal is that David's line would have a forever kingdom. So, okay, you guys, if you want to help me out, you need to sit nicely.
Okay.
Okay. They're my big helpers, but it's hard to sit, okay? Is it hard for you guys to sit still? Type in the chat, yes, if so.
I'd rather go get some dirty laundry made.
Gotta do it, Johnny.
Oh, but I need some help. So I need you to be here. So here's the promise. Can you guys listen carefully?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it the
First
same?
Chronicles 17:11 through 14. God said to David, when your days are fulfilled, so when you die, and you walk with your fathers, I will raise up an offspring after you, one of your sons, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for me, and I will establish his throne forever. I will be to him a father, and he will be to me a son. I will not take my steadfast love from him, as I took it from him who was before you, but I will confirm in him my house and my kingdom forever, and his throne will be established forever. So God was talking about a forever king. Who would be the forever king?
Jesus.
Yes, he is the forever king reigning on the throne right now, and God promised that big promise to David.
He made the whole world.
And maybe David thought that his son Solomon would be that Messiah. Maybe he thought so. But was Solomon the Messiah? He was the wisest man on earth. He was so wise. Was he the Messiah?
No.
No. Did he obey God completely?
No.
No, he didn't. He did not obey God completely. But Solomon did something special for God. What did Solomon do for God? Do you guys remember?
He built God's temple.
He built the temple of God. He built the temple. And after he built the temple, he made a prayer. He finished a prayer. And do you know what came down from heaven on the temple?
A dove.
Oh, that's a good guess.
Ooh.
Doves come down.
That does come.
So far, we've seen a lot about fire showing the presence of God. Yeah, and fire came down from the presence of God from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and sacrifices and filled the temple. And the priest couldn't
I
even
need to
go
go pee.
in. Go ahead. The priest couldn't even go in, and they fell down on their faces and worshipped and gave thanks to God. You can see that in 2 Chronicles 7:1 through 3. And then the kingdom was split apart. It was divided. Okay? So we had our United Kingdom. So far, see if you guys can see this. They wandered with God. They made a home with God in the Holy Land. Then there were judges ruling. Then they had a single kingdom under Saul, then David, then Solomon, and then the kingdom was divided. Do you know why the kingdom was divided?
They did.
Yeah, it's because they didn't obey God, right? And so God actually said, because of your sin, your kingdom will be divided. And there were 500 years from the divided kingdom to when they came back to the land after exile.
My seat.
There were two kingdoms, a northern and southern kingdom. The northern kingdom ended in 722 BC when they went into exile, and the southern kingdom in 586 BC. Were there any good kings in the northern kingdom? We need the divided kingdom.
Kind of.
There were actually no good kings in the northern kingdom.
Oh my God.
Nobody
Kingdom.
obeyed God. And do you know who the
What is it
prophets were?
What?
The split kingdom. The kingdom was split in two, north and south.
Here.
So here is our symbol for the divided kingdom, the split.
So one
Kingdom.
here and one here and one is all together.
Do you know who any of the prophets were to the northern kingdom?
Elijah?
Yeah. Actually,
Elijah,
Elijah,
Elisha.
Hosea, Jonah, Amos. Do you guys
is my
know
friend.
anybody? Yeah, you have a friend named Amos.
And his birthday's in 2 days.
Ooh, so exciting. I'm looking forward to that. So those are some of the prophets. And in the southern kingdom, were there all good
I
kings?
have a headache.
I'm sorry. Were there good kings in the southern kingdom? There were good kings. There were some, but were they all good?
Nope.
A lot of them were bad. But there were prophets sent. They were Obadiah.
I
Joel.
remember I saw that at church.
Yeah. Listen to these prophets' names and see if you know anybody with this name now. There was Obadiah,
Know it.
Joel,
Know it.
Nahum,
No.
Zephaniah.
Yeah,
you know Joel.
I
You
know.
have a friend named Joel. Habakkuk,
I know it.
Micah,
Know it.
Isaiah,
Know it.
and Jeremiah. They
Yeah,
spoke
I
to
know
the
them
southern
all.
kingdom. So even though there were lots of bad kings and a lot the people followed the bad kings to disobey God and make idols, put other things first before God, one important thing is God kept speaking his word to them through the prophets. And the prophets brought them God's word. They warned them of consequences for sin, reminded them to keep looking what it looked like to live as God's special, holy, kingly priest family. And the prophets called them to love God first with their whole hearts and to love each other. We had lunch.
I did have a snack.
Oh my goodness, you're hungry? Well, we'll eat after. Any of you guys hungry?
How about we could show us our snack?
But I need you to listen because you're interrupting. All right, so these prophets hinted to and pointed to and all out promised about the Messiah that was to come. He would be that snake-crushing offspring of Eve who would finally crush Satan and the power of sin for the whole world. He would be the blessing for all the nations. He would be the ark through whom the whole world could finally once for all be saved from their sin and the mess that it makes in our lives and the world around us. He'd be the lion of the tribe of Judah. He'd feed their souls like the manna from heaven and quench their thirst like the rock of Horeb. He would be the only one who could completely obey God's law and satisfy God's judgment against their sin by dying like one of those unblemished lambs at Passover. He wouldn't only show them how to dwell with God, but he would be God dwelling with us. He wouldn't just open the door of our home to our home with God through sacrifice, but he would be the door. He wouldn't only make a dwelling place for us better than Eden, but he would be our dwelling place. And so the prophets spoke many wonderful things about the Messiah to come. Did the people listen to God?
No way.
No. So those divided kingdoms were sent out of the land. So can you find a picture for how they were sent out of the land? We're going to fill in our chart. This is when they were sent away from home with God. And the temple of Jerusalem was burned. And the people were taken out. The northern kingdom went first. Remember, they had no good kings. You can hand them to me one at a time.
They wanted a king, right?
They wanted a king, yeah. But they had no good kings in the northern kingdom. And they were sent out
That's
first.
not fun.
And they were sent out in 722 BC. And the southern kingdom in 586 BC when the temple was destroyed. Hey, boys.
Yep.
They can still see you and what you're doing.
She's getting the glue stick back.
Okay.
I never saw the
And then
thing he was giving.
after they were in exile for one of the sections came back, not the northern kingdom, but Judah. Remember, Judah was promised a place forever. They were promised to have a king on their throne forever. And so now they return. I know it is hard, isn't it? I'm sorry. They were promised to come back. So see how they're rebuilding?
Come back. Right now, for me, it's like a desert.
They came back at home in the land. And what did they have to rebuild when they came back?
The temple.
They rebuilt the temple first, right? They came back under Zerubbabel.
We beat the pin.
And under Zerubbabel, they built the temple. And Ezra helped them build Hope again. And then Nehemiah helped them build the walls. And during that time, there was Esther. What did Haman try to do when Esther was queen? Who did he try to kill?
Her family.
Yeah, and her family was the people of Israel.
And her.
So if all of the people had killed all the Israelites, would the Messiah have been able to come? No. So God saved the people again through Esther. And then the last period of time that we're going to talk about today, we're almost done. The last period of time we're going to talk about today is how they were waiting for the voice and person of God for 400 years. That's a long time, isn't it? They had no prophets in the land to tell them God's word.
No. I don't have any more cards.
I don't know where the last one went.
I lost it.
So for 400 years, they were waiting for God.
Oh, come on.
So here is our last chart. Let me show you. So here. So we talked about first, they were wandering with God in the desert. Then they made their home in the land of Israel. Then Judges ruled. Then there was a single kingdom under Saul, David, and Solomon. Then the kingdom was divided into the northern and southern kingdom. And then they disobeyed again and again. And they were sent away from God. Then they were back home. And then they were waiting for God to send the Messiah.
Wait.
I know it was a lot of waiting. But the people, they were starting to have hope again and starting to think about the Messiah and think about what the prophets of long ago had said. And
Get that glue stick who fell.
it's okay. We don't need the glue stick anymore. We finished our charts. Give me 5. Thanks for your help. Thanks for your help, buddy. And
Who's done?
I'll send those pictures to you guys so you can have those too. We are almost done. As they waited, sometimes they faithfully studied God's word and listened. Did they do that all the time? No. Sometimes they forgot and did evil and made idols. But as the time got closer,
Elijah and the evil people. Hey, Mom, I just learned about Elijah in my book.
you did, I know. That's so cool.
Even Ezekiel.
Samuel too.
Okay,
Oh, I
so
know.
they didn't always obey. They didn't always live the holy lives that God had called them to live. They didn't always live as the holy people that God said they were. But God was still faithful. They couldn't obey all the way. They needed the Messiah to come and save them from sin and from the power of sin. Their hearts were bent towards sin. They needed that snake-crushing, sin-smashing Son of David who would be their forever king and who would bless the whole world with his forever rule. And so do we. Their sin, it built up over time. And can you imagine? We've got these bags of one day of just our sin. Can you imagine the sin of all time that built up before the Messiah came? How big would those bags be? Those bags would be so big.
My bag probably, I would have like this whole room full of it.
And if we could see all the sin we did, our bags we'd already have bags and bags because we don't even know all the sin that we're doing every day. It'd be terrible. There'd be so much sin. And so people were waiting and waiting for the Messiah. And so I want you to keep getting an idea of how big that sin is that built up over all those years before Jesus came to die. And so I want you to keep filling up your bag today and ask for forgiveness and think about the good you can do instead and ask God to help you to do it. Do the opposite of what you did bad today. And then there'll be a video for you to watch. And as you watch that video, I want you to count how many times you hear God being faithful. That's your homework for today. So thanks for joining us. We're so glad that you could come, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. You guys want to say bye?
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't forget
Bye,
to get addicted to God.
Yeah, don't forget to get addicted to God. I love that, Jude.
I'm going to say that every single day.
All right, bye.
Bye, Becky.